he gets $100 million payday and you're getting ready to get your paycheck. And some judge says, this is crazy. You can't make $100 billion. And so all of a sudden, now the pay is in limbo. So they hold another shareholder vote like, hey, guys, this judge shot this down. So maybe we'll see what the shareholders think again. And guess what the shareholders did?
They voted for it again.
They voted for it again. They said Elon should make this money because you know what? When he 10X's the company, like the shareholders are okay to pay him.
Yeah.
And so now we have, it's almost like he's trolling the judge. I mean, nobody listening to this is surprised to hear like,
part of me thinks that this new package is somewhat symbolic. It seems ludicrous because
he's trolling.
Well, Tesla's going to have to get to $7 trillion in market cap.
8.5.
Welcome to the Money Alchemist podcast. I'm your host, Ben Jones.
And I'm Brent Gargano. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how to think through concentrating your wealth. Most financial advisors would only ever tell you diversify, diversify, diversify. And we certainly think diversification is meaningful. But there are times and there are people who have concentrated and become massively wealthy as a result.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to lately, Ben?
Let's see here. School started since last time our last podcast. I'm trying to remember if school started then or after that. I think that we've already started school. So kids got their first report card back, and
you guys get report cards. How many weeks into school are you?
4 weeks, I think. Yeah,
what grades?
They start in August now.
You know, those go on their permanent record.
Yeah, the kids are all doing good. They're killing it. So
they won't get into Harvard if they don't get good grades now.
Yeah, well, they're not going to get into Harvard anyway. I don't know, man. I got mixed feelings about Harvard. A lot of employers, from what I've heard, they avoid the Harvard grads because apparently they're entitled to higher salaries. So, but Harvard's still a great place, I would imagine.
I'm just picking. I mean, as parents, like at what point are the kids just like kids? Like at what point are we? I mean, I don't know what grades you're referring to, but like, how many report cards can you give a kid during a year?
You get quite a bit, actually. In fact, one of the annoyances I have is the volume of emails I get from my kids' school is unbelievable. In my personal email, and it's not one of those emails you can like click to unsubscribe. You feel obligated to read these things, and it's just unbelievable. Teachers will write a whole dissertation about this is what's happened
going
today.
On and
oh my gosh, it's like, just stop it, and I don't know why the teachers are doing this. I mean, it's extra work for them.
Well, I was confused because our school recently, they do the same thing. We get lots of emails and I try to read the emails as best I can, but we had to meet the teacher tonight. I kind of raised my hand and said like, hey, is there like a calendar that lays out all these events? Because it seems like there's just something going on all the time, and keeping track of what it is like terribly hard. So I asked, is there a calendar?
Yeah.
And the answer I got was like, no, it'll all be in the emails. So I'm kind of with you. I have to read through this like paragraphs of an email to try to figure out like what's on the calendar where, and then I have to like go adjust it. Like, wouldn't it just be easier just to give me a calendar that I could access to and hit accept, hey, you want to go to this event? Here's the day it is. Register here, and then I put it on my calendar. But anyway, I digress.
There's a business idea. I'm sure there's some company out there that's doing it.
You'd imagine that most of these parents with school-age kids are like pretty busy.
Yeah.
And I'm betting you and I are not the only ones that like maybe skim the emails at best, and then you kind of hope that you caught all the stuff that you're.
I'll tell you what my strategy is. I go into my inbox and I completely nuke all those emails because I just assume my wife's looking at it.
Well,
she tells me.
Good on
in
her.
my defense, she tells me, she says, you don't need to worry about those. I got it.
Wow, that's a good woman.
Yeah, it is. So
you're
thank
lucky.
God for that. But I still peruse them just to kind of out of curiosity. I'm like, well, what is going on? But it is way too many emails that these schools are sending out. And what's funny is they're completely unnecessary. I went through all kindergarten through 12th
I don't
grade.
know.
My parents didn't receive a single email
What
from
was
any of
email
my
around?
teachers.
How old, email wasn't around then. Were they using email when you were going through school?
Yeah, they were, because email came out in the 90s. How old do you think
Yeah,
I am?
don't know. I mean, I like. I'll tell you what. I have a kindergartner now, and I mean, I love getting the pictures of my kiddo. That's the hardest thing for me with the kindergartner is like, she's now gone 8 hours a day, which is crazy because I looked at my wife the other day. Both of our kids were at school. And I had this realization that I don't think we've actually both been alone together at our house in years. Like we've been alone together, maybe out to eat.
Yeah.
Or like going and doing something, but alone together at our house has not really been a thing.
How did that feel?
It was really strange.
Yeah.
And then now we're about to have another baby. So like I got maybe a month and a half of like, I don't want to say peace and quiet because I love having the kids around, but like a month of, no kids around. And now we're going to have a new screaming newborn.
Yeah.
So
good luck with that. But I'm with you. Like I'm at that stage where our youngest is now in preschool. So my wife and I will get some alone time, and it can be a little unsettling, because you're just like,
it's
wow,
just quiet.
Yeah, it's quiet.
It's just too quiet.
Feel like there should be something going on. You feel like, and I don't mean it's hard for me to be with my wife. I love my wife. We get along. We have great marriage, and she's my best friend. But it's unsettling in the sense that you feel like you should be doing something, and you just feel like uncomfortable sitting and relaxing.
Yeah.
You're like, I feel like there's something we should be doing, like a lunch that needs to be prepared, or a child that needs to be tended to. But yeah, speaking of children, we got this K-pop Demon Hunter song. We got to correct the record because I played the last one.
Here's what happened. So
yeah.
I brought this up to you like a week ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about this and I said, have you, because my daughter, this K-pop Demon Hunters thing, I had never heard of it like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And then now it's all over the place. All she wants to listen to is this thing. And we went to a summer camp, like a family kind of camp, and she actually got up and performed this thing. So if you're a parent and you're listening to this and you have a kid like, under 10 years old, my guess is you probably already know what this is. For anybody else, Ben, don't play the music because it's just a little.
Okay, I'll spare everyone. Everyone, but
I think Netflix stock, like this was so impactful that like I think Netflix stock actually moved one day.
Since August, Netflix stock has really rebounded quite a bit. So it might be K-pop might be popping the stock. It's not the only thing. Our kids aren't the only thing popping off right now.
It's amazing like how kind of zoned in they can get on that stuff that quickly. So my daughter's watching K-pop Demon Hunters, and I'm thinking to myself that like, oh, this is just some kind of like one-off thing, and then I'm in the car and we go to the Spotify, like global top 50 playlist or whatever, right? Because I'm just trying to put on some kind of music for the kids, and like of the global top 50, all of the Demon Hunter songs were in there. Like the first six of the top 10 songs.
Have you seen the show?
I've seen like bits and pieces.
It's actually really well done. I watched it from a distance, and I'm like, yeah, I can see why kids like this, especially young girls. It's basically like an anime version of what you would imagine. Who's that famous singer that everybody loves? Taylor Swift, were anime and she fought demons.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's like some Backstreet Boys in there or something too, I think.
Oh, is there? Okay. I didn't see that part.
There's I think the demons are like a boy band.
Oh, so anyway, is that right? Well,
I
don't know how I feel about that.
Not to get, I'm sure everybody that listens to our podcast about wealth wants to hear about Taylor Swift and K-pop Demon Hunters, but just bringing this back to things like Taylor Swift. I mean, you think about somebody who's like really she's first generation wealth. I mean, I guess her dad was pretty well, but she's like a billionaire now.
Yeah.
And she's
like
married.
A billionaire. I think she's one of the wealthiest. She might be one of the youngest, wealthiest person. I think there's one person that's wealthier than her right now, but I think she was the wealthiest person under 30.
Would you consider Taylor Swift wealthy, or would you consider her rich?
Wealthy. Yeah.
Well, here's the reason I pose this, right? So what we wanted to talk about today is the idea of, I call it strategic concentration. So, all these financial planners, including us, we all preach diversification, right? Diversification is really important. Do you think Taylor Swift got to over $1 billion of wealth through being diversified? Right?
Oh, no.
So, and my point is this: as when we think about ways to create wealth or money, just broadly speaking, I think about it in this way, where there's kind of a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum, you have getting rich, right? And I think rich is, it's kind of like almost a dirty word, so I almost feel bad using it, but it's like, the way that I think about it is that's like having a lot of money, right? Just a lot of money. And the attributes that make you rich are not the same attributes as somebody with wealth, right? Where wealth may be less dramatic of outcomes, right? Like somebody with wealth, in my mind, is diversified. They have a lot of money, but they're, maybe somebody building wealth as opposed to getting rich isn't going to become a multi-billionaire, as opposed to somebody getting rich. Well, I've done a bad job of explaining this.
Let me try.
Okay.
Give me a shot at it. So I think that there's a couple ways to get wealthy through concentration. I think there is what you describe as wealth is really like the net result of saving free cash flows into some sort of pool or bucket of money that preserves that purchasing power. But on the other side, you've got what I would describe as your financial engine. So, and I think this is the most important thing to concentrate in, and it amounts to Malcolm Gladwell's, becoming an expert. 10,000 hours. You get really good at something when you have 10,000 hours of experience, which is a heck of a lot of experience. So, you concentrate your time and attention into a skill that hopefully can be, you can make money from it, like whether it's an artist, musician, lending advice to people, financial planning. You get really, really, really good at that. And if you're lucky, this skill is something that you can turn into a business that has its own enterprise value, like what Elon did.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is this, and I think I think I could do a better job of explaining it. If there's a spectrum of having money, on one end of the spectrum, there's getting rich, and getting rich is characterized by wider margins of outcomes. People that try to get rich, some of them end up totally broke, and some of them end up astronomically wealthy, right? On the other end of the spectrum, you have building wealth. Building wealth has much narrower outcomes, right? If you follow the tried and true advice of save money, invest, diversify, like you will build wealth. Like you will end up with wealth, but you're not going to have stratospheric wealth necessarily, but you're also not going to be broke, right? You're going to be managing to the middle. And my point is that there are characteristics that lead one to the other. You don't get Taylor Swift wealthy by building a diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You concentrate.
That doesn't get you there.
In her case, what she did is she concentrated into a skill, and that is singing and marketing herself. She's actually not the best singer. She's just incredibly good at presenting and marketing herself. And she put together a team of really just great talent around her to set her up on this platform. And
I'm not necessarily going to contemplate what exactly makes Taylor Swift successful, but what I do know is that, like you said, there is kind of, you have essentially this financial engine. I think that the way you described it was right. And that produces the money.
Yes.
And then you have to make a decision now of like, with this money that's been produced, how do you store that?
Yeah.
Right. And you need to store it in a way that outpaces inflation and make sure that when you don't have the ability to work anymore, or produce the money from that engine, that there's enough money over on the side to take over.
Now let's take this a step further. And I think this is what, our case example in our last episode was Elon. but he's not alone in how he does this, that you can create exponential wealth building through layered concentration. So he had one financial engine. What was it? It was like Y2 or something like that. It doesn't matter. His first enterprise that he sold, he got like something like $10 million, I think, and then he took that and he concentrated that into eBay.
Yeah, he made
Or
successive bets.
Yes.
Right. Elon. So
Mhm.
for people listening to this, it was just this past week. Elon, for now the third time in the last 15 years, negotiated or has presented a pay package to shareholders of Tesla stock that basically includes no salary. So Elon Musk, for now over a decade, has received no salary from Tesla, but it includes essentially options like the right to buy Tesla stock at certain milestones.
Mhm.
And so, assuming, and he's done this now 3 times. In 2012, he negotiated the first pay package. 2018, there was a second one. Now, 2025, we've got a third. This is actually pretty incredible because it's just such a good example of like this concept of getting rich, right?
Mhm.
Elon Musk, literally, if he doesn't hit these goals, he gets no money
Yeah.
from Tesla. But if he hits these goals, he gets paid ungodly amounts of money, right? So much so that in his 2018 pay package, he hit all the goals. And it turns out the pay package is worth something like $100 billion. And so there was a judge that came out and basically
He called it ludicrous, didn't he?
shot down the whole pay
He
package. Said it was
obscene or something like. He used a pejorative.
And so now Elon's in this legal battle
Uh-huh.
which, by the way, these pay packages aren't just like negotiated by Elon and signed off on by managers, right? These things are brought up for shareholder vote.
Yeah.
So like when Elon decided in 2012, here's how I want my pay package to work, it goes up for shareholder vote. More than 2/3 of the shareholders voted for this. It was like 70% plus voted for the pay package. It works. He gets paid a ton of money. 2018 negotiates a new pay package with, by the way, at the time, goals that people thought were absolutely ridiculous for the stock, right? Turns out he crushes all of them, right? And now he gets $100 million payday and you're getting ready to get your paycheck. And some judge says, this is crazy. You can't make $100 billion. And so all of a sudden, now the pay is in limbo. So they hold another shareholder vote like, hey, guys, this judge shot this down. So maybe we'll see what the shareholders think again. And guess what the shareholders did?
They voted for it again.
They voted for it again. They said Elon should make this money because you know what? When he 10X's the company, like the shareholders are okay to pay him.
Yeah.
And so now we have, it's almost like he's trolling the judge. I mean, nobody listening to this is surprised to hear like,
part of me thinks that this new package is somewhat symbolic. It seems ludicrous because
he's trolling.
Well, Tesla's going to have to get to $7 trillion in market cap.
8.5.
8.5 trillion. By when, by the way? I didn't catch the time
it's like
horizon.
the next, I think it's by
years?
20. Point is this, okay? This kind of represents an ethical dilemma, okay? Because on one hand, you have a judge that says $100 billion is way too much. In this case, by the way, if he hits all these goals in the pay package that they're voting on now, he will make not $100 billion like in the last one, which was already ruled down, $1 trillion. Yes. It'll be $1 trillion payday. Okay.
Yeah.
And so on the other hand, currently Tesla's worth, let's say roughly $1 trillion. Okay. So if Elon hits all these goals and brings the stock up to $8.5 trillion for a shareholder, that means you've 8.5 extra money. For every $10,000 you have in Tesla stock, you have $85,000. So like, tell me, as the shareholder, how upset are you going to be if that happens? And then you have to pay Elon $1 trillion. Like, I don't think any shareholder.
Yeah, they'll be happy with that.
Yeah, like you don't have to pay him. I mean, a salary gets paid to somebody regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
The company could fail and you're still out the money that you paid to the CEO as a salary. But in this case, you pay him nothing unless the company does amazing.
Yes.
This is incredibly friendly for shareholders.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of this interesting. And by the way, the other interesting thing in this compensation is there's no contractual agreement. Like this package is designed, and really the goal here is that, we talk about Elon taking no salary, like he has no pay. Elon makes plenty of money from other sources. right? But Tesla knows that in order to keep Elon's attention, they aren't going to be able to hold him through a contractual agreement. They have to economically incentivize him. So they're basically trying to put together a package that's so economically enticing that Elon doesn't want to focus his time and energy in these other places as much as he wants to focus in Tesla.
They got to buy his attention.
And that's basically what it is. So I'm just interested because we've already got the $100 billion is already in flux. We'll see what happens with that. He's been released. I think the courts temporarily gave him 24 billion or something like something to live on for the moment, but he's going to have to repay that if this gets shut, if it actually gets taken down. And then we're going to have to see what happens, assuming he hits this one, to pay out 10x this. So anyway, that is all to say that
that's interesting.
That's all to say that if you want to have $1 trillion or even $1 billion, you're not getting there by being diversified.
Yep.
You are concentrating, you are taking risks. And for every Elon out there that becomes a trillionaire, there's probably 100,000s of others that are, not in as good of a spot, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they somewhat instinctively know this, and that's why you see so much big gambling, like that. The large stakes tables in Vegas are more popular than the low stakes.
Well, building wealth is more boring, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like when you look at a 40-year career, I've done the math on this. If you saved $10,000 a year for 40 years, and if you look at the total amount of growth, it turns out that if you save $10,000 a year for 40 years, you save a total of $400,000, and at like a 7% rate of return, you have something like $2 million, $2.5 million at the end of it, right? And so you end up with, let's just call it $2 million of growth, but over that 40 years, the first 24 years, you only see 1/5 of the total growth. Like, think about how this is what's so hard about investing is, like, as humans, we don't work in 20-year time increments. We work in like one, maybe 6 months,
at
1
most
year.
3 years.
At most 3. That's what the data shows, is that kind of capitulation happens in 3 years. And if you think about the patience to stick with something for 25, 35, 45 years, and in traditional investing, your returns, like, people on social media might say, oh, your advisor says you make an 8% return. Screw that. You can make higher returns doing X, Y, Z. 8% returns are incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. They just take time. People are impatient. They want that quick money.
Have you got anybody calling you to buy some XRP?
No.
Oh,
no.
That's the thing, man. That's what's going to make everybody's
rich. Looking for a quick buck, right?
Yeah.
And kind of back to what you were saying before. So here's the question. As an advisor, like, our job is to manage your risk, right? There's no amount of upside that is worth the downside of complete financial ruin in kind of a financial planner's brain, right? So we're not going to let you take, like, unlike Elon, where if he took every penny of what he had in 1997 and reinvested in what became PayPal, maybe the financial advisor would have said, that's not a great advice. Maybe you could use some of that money to, like, live on, but it worked, right? With a little luck and some skill, it works. So, really what we try to preach to our clients as advisors is, like, yes, you do need to be diversified, but there is a place for concentration, risk, and some of that luck.
Oh, I agree. I think the first place to concentrate in is your financial engine, because you have control over it. You can sink as much time into it and become more familiar with the process that builds your wealth. For example, the business that I have and you have, we sink most of our time and energy and capital into this, and it generates a return, and then we can take that return and then pile it into either another concentrated bet. We could easily start another venture. Of course, you get spread thin eventually. So what I think is a smarter thing to do for most people, if you're going to stay in the business, which I plan to do, is to take your savings and then pile it into a wealth preservation tool or a wealth building tool, which would be diversified. So, but the other way you could do it is you could be like a serial entrepreneur. There's nothing stopping me. I could totally do this. Build up a wealth planning business,
Sell it and start again.
And then go do it over again, or start maybe a fintech company or become like a property casualty insurance broker. I could easily do that. And I actually know people that have done that very successfully. Not sure I have the patience for it though. I kind of like what I do,
But the point
Mhm.
is that one of the kind of most important rules of the road is like concentrate where you have control
Yeah.
and you have expertise.
Yep. Concentrate where you have control, and that doesn't mean that doesn't guarantee you're going to be successful, but what it does help with, I think, is it gives you a sense of control. Not a sense of control, actually, it gives you control, so you'll be more disciplined with it. Because I think when it comes to concentrated investments, you just have to have a rock iron temperament. The saying is diamond hands. You have to have diamond hands because it's going to get rocky. This
And that's the hard thing, right? I
Mhm,
have a client, I got their permission to talk with them or talk about them
mhm.
in this case. They hold the majority of their portfolio is concentrated. Okay. 10 years ago, they decided these advisors aren't worth much. They
Yeah.
all tell me to diversify. Diversification goes me nowhere.
Mhm.
What I really need is concentration. Decided to concentrate in three things: Apple, Tesla, and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. It's worked great.
Yeah.
Right. So now, how do you think that guy feels about those positions?
Well, obviously,
Loves them.
yeah, he loves them.
He has, I have never seen somebody with as solid a diamond hands.
Mhm,
Right. And that's both great because it's worked,
mhm.
but it's also outside of his control. So when I build a financial plan around this, it's like, how do I have any faith that the projection that I'm running is relevant at all?
Yeah.
When we build diversified portfolios, it's pretty, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of data that supports the returns that we, project and the volatility we project and things like that when we build a financial plan. When somebody owns just a couple of positions, there's just no way to anticipate what that could ultimately look like.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to buy these positions than it ever is to sell them
Mhm.
by far. Right. I think we've taken a look at GE stock. This was a big one.
Yeah, I mean, here in Cincinnati, you got the tale of two companies. So, there's one of the companies that's created more millionaires in Cincinnati than any other company is Procter and Gamble, and they have a really neat. It's actually a private letter ruling with the IRS. Their retirement plan is a completely custom retirement plan. But they get this. They have this profit sharing trust that gets the Procter and Gamble essentially contributes stock on the behalf of the employees, and it can be substantial sums. And by the time, if you're a PNG lifer, you can have millions of dollars sitting in this profit sharing trust. And you know what? It's done very well, and it continues to do very well because the stock holds up. Now, General Electric had a similar setup. Not to the it was a standard 401k plan, but companies or employees concentrated in that stock back in the 90s because it just could do no wrong.
Yeah,
GE was
everybody loves stocks that are going up,
Yeah,
right?
GE was the Apple of the 90s. It just cranked out returns. Jack Welch seemed to, just print gold. The guy could do no wrong. And then 2000 happened, and then Jeff Immelt took over. It's a long story. I don't need to get into the history of GE, but just suffice it to say the stock spun in the mud for more than 2 decades.
Yeah, for some context,
Yeah.
I just pulled this up in a chart. If you had invested $1 million in GE stock in
Mhm.
1990, by 2000, you would have had about $14 million.
Yeah.
Now compare that to being in the S&P 500. That same million would be worth a little over $5 million.
Yeah. So 3x the returns essentially.
You're feeling
Yeah.
like a genius owning that
Yeah.
GE stock, right? But what
Um,
do you think happened the next 20
Yeah,
years?
it did terrible, and I know firsthand of several families that got wiped out. They ran out of money in retirement because they had all of their money bet on that one horse, and it's unfortunate. It's very difficult to plan for idiosyncratic risks, and when you put all
What is
your
an idiosyncratic risk? Explain that
that's
to
a
an
risk
idio
that
like me.
that's a risk that's unique to one position that cannot be diversified away. So, for example, like company risk.
Boeing plane crashes out of the sky.
Yes. Or, in the case of GE, they made, because they were desperate for the Jack Welch era style return on equity, they were chasing bad acquisitions. For example, one of the things that they did back when all these, they had GE Power, and they had
They bought and sold at all the wrong times. Is basically what it boils down to.
They
bought high and sold low. They
literally bought a coal powered generator manufacturing company when all the electric the utilities companies were phasing out coal power for gas, and they literally went and bought this coal. It was obvious that the numbers were deteriorating, but they just wanted to show to the shareholders, we're doing something. Look at the projections. And then the whole thing, and that's just one example, and they lost millions on that particular acquisition.
And by the way, so just to play out that scenario further, it's like, so by 2000, your $1 million starting in 1990 was 14 million in GE, 5 million in S&P. Today, 25 years later, the GE stock would still be worth 14 million. And the S&P is 34 million. You'd have $34 million today invested in the S&P 500 had you invested $1 million 35 years ago. So that brings us to rule number 2, which is don't concentrate with money you can't afford to lose.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and so for the clients, I'll speak about my client that I was talking about before in this case. Like in their situation, they do have a diversified sleeve of the portfolio. And the way that we actually run the plan is geared around, could you make everything that you want to do work if all you had was that diversified sleeve, right? In reality, the other stocks probably aren't going to zero, but I kind of want to be prepared. I'm not so
sure, but I'm sorry to pause you, but look at the Dow Industrial Average. How many original components still exist in the Dow?
Zero. The statistics on this are actually crazy. If you look over a long period of time, something like only 4% of companies actually survive over 100 years. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them go to zero. Like some of them get acquired. Like there's lots of things that happen there. But the chances are, if you're 35 years old and you're buying an individual stock in your portfolio, whether you sell it or something gets rid of it for you, that stock's not going to be there in 50 years. At least statistically. And so, we could hope that it's an acquisition or something that's productive and you get paid. Of course, then you have big capital gains you have no control over. So that's almost a problem in and of itself. So there's lots of, for our clients, we typically look at diversified, low cost index funds, because what that allows is for the underlying positions to change over time without creating tax impact for the client. Right. And
I'm not married to index funds. We don't need to get on that topic.
Yeah, separate debate.
I think low cost is important, and I do like the ETF, particularly the exchange traded fund designed separate from Vanguard's model. Vanguard has kind of an interesting ETF setup where it's less tax efficient. But exchange traded funds in general are very tax efficient and tend to be pretty low cost. But you can buy. I think the right investment.
Here's my point. We're not on an episode about investments. We can talk about that later. The point is, when you own individual stocks, okay, you can't sell that position without taking a gain, okay, or a loss if you lose money. Inside of an ETF, if the ETF wants to rebalance and trim Apple and buy NVIDIA, they actually don't have to trigger a taxable event for that.
Yes.
And so your portfolio can shift its allocation without triggering a capital gain for you. And that is so, and I know we're not on an investment podcast, but that is just so cool when you think about the function of an ETF as opposed to owning individual stocks or a mutual fund, right? Active managed index. I think that's maybe a conversation for another day. But the point is, don't concentrate money that you rely on. Make sure the money you're concentrating with is nice to have money, not need to have money.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But you also don't lose sight of the fact that I think you should always be concentrated in your skill set. One other problem, getting into the topic of concentration, one problem that I see with a lot of my small business owners, not a lot, a few, myself included, actually, I'll pick on myself a little bit, as we get overextended. You get your hands in too many things. You try to do a venture here, a venture there. Who was I talking to? Oh, I was talking to a couple this morning. I was meeting with a couple this morning and their parents. Actually, this couple is moving out of state to help a bunch of small businesses. So they got rental properties. They got what do you call those venues? Like the wedding venues. There's a name for them. But basically it's like one of these wedding venues that you go to and an event center. Yeah. And then on top of that, they own a plumbing business. It's like, why don't you just pick the one that has the best return on investment and just concentrate on that?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but like Charlie Munger is famous for saying that like, if you have a gold mine in your backyard, why are you shopping for other houses in the neighborhood?
Yeah. So now you can pay other people, hire managers to kind of do that stuff for you. But the point is, for you got to concentrate your own time and attention. Don't try not to be distracted by all these shiny objects, which that happens all the time. You see this with job hoppers. Oh, the grass is greener over there. I got to move over there. And before you know it, you're short circuiting your income growth.
Yeah, I think I don't know if this relates exactly, but I think one of the other rules that I try to keep in mind as I'm taking risks is like, I think people get really, I think they get really enticed by the upside of certain things. Like if you're thinking about buying a stock and you just watch TV and somebody says, we think this stock could 10X over the next 3 years. If all you do in your head is go, well, gosh, what is 10X on my money? You're probably going to buy or over allocate to this, right? Instead, what I try to do with our clients and what I think is really helpful as you make decisions is to try to think about the what you could lose scenario. Like, what are the downsides, right? And I think that'll help you be more practical about the risks that you take. So, hey, this stock could 10X, but it could also get cut in half, right? If you are getting ready to buy that stock and you're thinking about it could 10X, you're gonna buy a lot more of it than if it could get cut in half. Now, if you buy more than you're comfortable with and it gets cut in half, what are you going to do? You're probably going to sell out because you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Successful investing is about putting yourself in a position where you can afford to have the diamond hands we talked about, right? And that is both a financial thing, like are you going to need the money? And it's also an emotional thing, like can you stand the heat of watching this thing go down 50%? And I would argue that can you stand the heat of watching this thing go down 50%? For the clients that I've seen, that drives their investment success a lot more than whether or not they're going to be happy if it goes up 10X.
Yeah. I do want to bring up this question because I imagine most people are like, Ben, Brent, that's well and good. Yeah, concentration is good. What should I concentrate in? So what would you think if you had to concentrate your wealth into one single thing, and it wasn't your business, what would it be?
Well, gosh, that's like a trap of a question. I mean, I agree with you. I think in a progression of a career, your first 10 years is really spent developing expertise and building capital, saving capital, investing so that you can be flexible to eventually monetize the expertise you're building.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people in their 20s tend to spend too much time thinking about how to concentrate into investments that might make them wealthy as opposed to build their skill sets so that they can concentrate their money into themselves. It's easier. Yeah. But if I had to concentrate in something that was not my business and I had to be concentrated, I couldn't, it's so hard. I can't answer that with
no, and you shouldn't. It was a trick question.
Well, I guess I'd buy a broad market ETF, you know what I mean?
But that's not a concentration because you're technically diversified. So, I purposely tripped you up there because I'm just trying to put my head in the position of the listeners. Like, well, give me the hot stock tips. The answer is there's nothing out there that you can buy that's going to be a guaranteed slam dunk replacement.
Yeah, it always requires luck. There's always an element of luck. There's always luck.
Yeah.
And to somebody that doesn't think that they got lucky along the way, like when you look back and you think that it was all your skill on what you picked, there's always luck.
Well, you mentioned before you mentioned before the recording that everybody's talking about, man, I should have put more money in Oracle stock.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hilarious. Oracle stock is up like 40% today.
Yeah.
It's like Larry Ellison made, I think, $110 billion this morning in his stock.
Which is crazy. And now everybody has hindsight regret. They're like, man, I should have known.
Because it was like a bad thing you owned NVIDIA instead of Oracle for the last 3 years, right?
Yes.
I mean, recency bias is its own thing. But I know, look, a couple other things I think we want to make sure we touch on as it pertains to concentration, because again, concentration can strategically be used to increase your wealth. We have some of the wealthiest clients that we work with have in some form or fashion made concentrated bets that they had some extent of control on or an illusion of control on, and they got a little bit lucky along the way. And now they're sitting in a good amount of money. Right. And, it's not all bad. I mean, I'm not saying that we would definitely not recommend I would never go on the record and say, I recommend somebody puts more than 10% of their portfolio in one individual holding, but I have seen it work for some people. And if you can afford to lose the 10% that you're going to allocate, and if you've got a plan in place, if you want to take that risk, make sure you're prepared for the downside scenario, not the upside scenario. When it does come, though, to taking outsized risks like concentration, there are a few don'ts, like really big don'ts, right? And basically the don'ts are anything that could, in any circumstance, blow you up, right? There is no amount of prize money that is worth playing Russian roulette.
What about, so like leverage?
This is where we have seen, every time, I'm just going to pick on crypto because everybody knows crypto is a volatile asset. But what happens is Bitcoin goes up and up and up and up. And the people that own Bitcoin go, gosh, I really love Bitcoin. I want to own more Bitcoin.
That's right.
So what do? They borrow against their Bitcoin. So you say, I have $100,000 of Bitcoin. Give me $50,000 borrowed against that. And then I'm going to take that $50,000 and buy more crypto.
Yeah.
Right. And this could exist on anything, individual stock positions. If you are going to lever something, diversification is incredibly important, right? Because again, there are risks that you cannot control that could impact a single stock or a single coin or whatever it is. And if you are levered, let's just use stocks as I borrow against my Apple stock position and I go take that money and buy NVIDIA stock. Well, what happens if my Apple stock loses value? Potentially, the person that I've borrowed the money from is going to say,
get a capital call, right?
We need some of our money back. So now I'm, as the person that's borrowed the money, I've got to come up with the money. Well, where am I going to go get the money? I'm going to go sell NVIDIA stock.
Yeah.
What's happening to NVIDIA stock if I'm getting capital called on Apple stock? They're more than likely.
Probably correlated, right?
So now I'm what's called a forced seller. And there is a major, major rule in financial planning that you don't, to the extent that you can control it, you never want to be a forced seller.
That's right.
Forced sellers get hosed, right? And what this is, I kind of pick on crypto because we've seen some big crypto booms and busts. Bubbles are built on leverage. When people are borrowing off of an asset to then take the money and buy more of that asset, that is artificially inflating the price of that asset. And eventually when it starts to come down and they do get those capital calls, they have to sell that asset to fund it.
Yeah.
And so these are called waterfall selling events. And these are the kinds of days when you wake up and the stock market's down 10%, or you look up and crypto's gotten crushed 70% over the last couple of weeks. That's what we're talking about. Those are leverage events where people are getting called out, becoming forced sellers, and it doesn't matter what the price is, they have to get out. And that causes a cliff, basically. And then at the bottom, there's no leverage in anymore. All the leverage has been cleared out. Those people have become forced sellers. They've lost their money, and then new capital can come in for a new market run.
And that's where you want to be.
You don't want to be one of those forced sellers. Never become a forced seller. So rules of the road, don't. What was it?
Well, the first rule is concentrate in a skill set, something you're really good at, or something you potentially could be really good at that you can market and earn a living, and ideally something that you could repackage and sell to someone else, so it'd be some sort of enterprise, resellable enterprise. So that's rule number one of concentration: is concentrate in your skills and yourself. Number one, and then number two would be don't concentrate in money that you can't afford to lose.
And then number three,
I don't know. What would it? Don't use leverage. Don't use leverage.
No, that's number 4.
Yeah.
Number 3 is don't. No prize is worth playing Russian roulette. Right.
Yeah.
There's no amount of upside that's worth the downside of it when the downside is completely unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then number 4 is do not lever concentrated positions.
Yes.
That is like a do not.
Yeah.
A big no-no. So,
I think that's a great. We should have just opened up with that.
all right. Well, there you go. Hopefully you skipped to the end and you got to the good part. TLDR.
Right. Yep. Thanks, Brent. Opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of principal. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Advisory services offered through National Wealth Management Group, LLC.